Hello, everybody. Welcome to the 12th episode of the HSBG podcast. I'm your host, Educatedcollins, and I'm here with my constant co host, Shady Bunny. How are you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you for asking. I hope you're doing well as well, Collins. It's good to be here.
Yeah, I've been doing good. A lot of I don't know. It's been an interesting week for a lot of people. I mean, it always is. The weeks have been interesting generally. Uh, since 2020. So you know,
So
just
that's, uh,
another one of those. But as we always do, we've got our Battlegrounds weekly overview. I don't think too much has changed in terms of like patches. There hasn't been any like micro adjustments or anything like that. But we've just been playing a little bit, um, doing things like that. I'm pretty sore this week, but I don't think that's like relevant. But just gonna say, I'm hoping things go better. But generally for Battlegrounds, I've been playing decently. I haven't really noticed any crazy changes. I've been winning with um, weirder comps, but I think that's just a me thing. Like the more I play, the weirder my comps become. So
what
I
would be a weird comp?
I won with bombs, uh, like
Hey.
a kaboom, kaboom kangaroo, Baron bombs. That was like I was just like, huh, I won. this this is a surprise. Also winning with like weird heroes like Curator and like you know those type of like not the hyper leveling heroes. Just like
Yeah.
stay on forward, maybe find some random composition and use that and actually win. So that kind of thing. But generally, it's been fun. I've had a good time. What about you, Shitty?
For me, it's just been great. It feels like something clicked. Like I thought I was just getting lucky the first day, right? So I I got the 10K on EU, and then I started playing on an A, and then I went from 9 to 9.5 in one day, and then from 9.5 to 10 in the other day, and now I'm 10.5, and it's just going stonks straight up.
It's good to
And
hear.
yeah, might just be 4 days of luck in a row, right? It's all possible.
That we take those.
We take
That's
it as that, yeah, for sure. Eh, it's been comfort and being aggressive, I suppose, and playing for the win, which means taking a bit more risks, um, bit more reliant on pairs to try to get triples with a good mix of, oh, this is a game where I probably the odds aren't very good for me to win. Let me just play my regular good tier four style and then taking seconds and stuff in those games. So overall, it's been really good. Obviously, get bad games here and there, but that always happens. So yeah,
yeah.
excited to just talk about the meta today. It's been good.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about it now, right? I mean, I don't have any like
Sure.
particular topics for the meta in general, but we were talking about it like before the start of the podcast, where you're doing a little bit more tier six minions, tier six compositions, and stuff like
Yep.
that, right? But you do know when to play it safe, right? And I was remarking how I do the similar thing, but in the opposite trajectory, where I'm always playing tier six, but there are some games where I'm like, you know what? Let me just roll it down. Let me play safe, right? Where you're like, let me go safe, and then you're like, I can kill them. I can pop off here. Let me go to
Yeah.
six. Where I'm like, I'm at six. I'm like, you know what? Maybe not a six game. Let's roll it down to four. So we're kind of doing the same uh, game plan, but from a different mindset. Where I'm more, six, and then maybe down. You're like four, and then maybe up. So
Yeah.
I find that fascinating personally.
It's the core principle is the same, I suppose, where you might just be on the you pop off a little bit more and you bottom out a little bit more, and bottom out a little bit less and I pop off a little bit less.
Yeah,
It's all about finding the right ratio there, right?
right balance
Uh,
for sure.
yeah. 'Cause I had one day where I think it was just my heroes being really good, where I think I had one taunt comp game all day, like 8 hours or 9 hours. I was like, what the hell is
And
this?
I have one day where my heroes are really bad, and I just like all day Tomahawk.
Like, what is this? Right? Yeah. Yeah, that happens, right? The frequency at which you're stuck on tier four is like, okay, my heroes are this or that for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's been I think one of the turning points for me has been well the pair gaming we're going to talk about later in the
Hmm.
podcast, right?
Right. Yeah.
So I'd say just identifying how strong I am, how strong my opponents are, because it's been a lot of the time that I went to 5, and let's say I pulled a coiler or something like that from a triple,
Hmm.
or even the flat tusk sometimes, where I just look at my opponent. I'm like, huh, that's a patchwork on 4 with no triples. All right, 6, right? Because I'm thinking, how strong can he be, right? He's patchwork on 4 with no triples. Whereas, and yeah, but before all you see, like when you don't have, I feel like now I'm able to step back, look at the situation, and say, "Oh, it's so obvious, right?" But then sometimes when you're, or I guess most of the times when you're learning, you're in the game, all you see is, "Oh shit, I went to 5. I've got 6 units on my board. There's no way I can go to 6, right? I'm going to take a bunch of damage," and you just get scared for no reason. So I feel like that's been a lot better for me, where I can really just scan my opponents and say, "How bad can it be?" Right? And then sometimes you get surprised. But yeah, it's usually Karaji Harbinger, right?
Dude,
Like you look at someone, tier 4, no triples, how bad can it be? And it's like, ah, that's a 20 damage Anoya module with 2 arms behind it. Yeah, it's pretty bad.
I
Okay.
ask myself how bad can it be all the time. So I know when it's like,
Yeah,
yeah, there's no way he has not anything,
yeah,
and then I'm just like, what is this scam comp?
yeah.
Random gas curler, random boat is the only thing they have, and I'm like, oh, that's 20 damage. Oh my god, I'm dead. So I know the life, but if one thing I would notice is if I was like paying more attention and realizing, oh, they leveled, got a triple that turn, da 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 da. Maybe I should be a little bit scared. But by that time, I've already leveled.
Yeah,
I've
that's
already
fair.
committed. So I can't
Yeah,
change my game plan. But like if I saw it earlier or something like that, then I could be like, okay, this is not a good idea. But uh,
yeah,
normally, if you are paying attention and you are being aware and alerted, and being able to react if you do see them get a triple or you look at their
yeah.
damage profile or something like that, then usually the time it's fine. Then you're 6, and you can really pop out from there. So I do agree.
Yeah, we talked about it a bit earlier, where a lot of the time, so for anyone who's been living under a rock or not really played a lot, the meta for the most part, right? The end game is get a flat tusk, get an agam, play menagerie, get huge minions, right? That's what I guess half my winning boards would look like, if not more. They're just straight up flat tusk agam because it's so strong. So a lot of your game plan is, let me get a triple into flat tusk and then I'll see. And what Flat Tusk does is, because you get gems for spending gold, if you have a decent gem target on your board, say an ideal situation would be I have a ground shaker on my board and I tripled into a Flat Tusk, you can go to 6 the turn after, get the gems for spending the gold on leveling, put the gems on the shaker, boom, free level 6. Right. So that's something I think why I'm on 6 more often is you are tripling into flat tusk if you can, and once you have her, you get rewarded for leveling in that way, which is it's just kind of crazy. So I do expect a nerf, because this feels unfair, right? Where it feels like the moment I have a flat tusk and I don't have a good target, so I roll a bit on 5, I hit an agam, oh GG. It's like, oh, it's over, it's fine.
It
Either the other guy has 2 agams or it's over, right?
it feels like
Or
your new Eliza, just just
yeah,
like
it's yeah, pretty much.
uh, that's fair. But Eliza's still in, so you can still just do Eliza as well. So if you,
Yeah, and she's still, so what Eliza then does is, oh, I'm strong regardless. Oh, I can push 6 as well, right? So she's just like, oh, I've got Eliza and a Skelly. That's an easy 6, right?
yeah,
So
yeah,
that's been happening more. Where I have been playing a bit more with Rag and Callie, but it's been, oh, let me get strong. Let me then get the 6. And oh, hey, 2 Callies, right? That's how it's been happening. Because I feel like if you triple into the Callie, you're not pushing 6 anytime soon, unless, your board was just phenomenal and you just got lucky. You tripled into an Adina or whatever, you're really strong.
yeah.
It feels like most of the time, like, oh, I tripled into Kelly. Let me now try and minimize the damage I'm going to be taking, because I'm going to be buying dragons and battle cries. So it's been feeling far more productive to say, oh, let me just grab 2 gas coilers, for instance. Then let me level to 6, and then let me just grab all the goodies. And then, especially when Murlocs are in, I think 6 is way more important, because Primal Fin pulls Amalgadon, and that's such a huge deal.
And
Um,
in terms of Kelly, I feel like if there's either two ways you can really do Kelly well, right? One is if you get it super early, right? Like turn 6, right? Like you have, then you have a Kelly, then yeah, you could do it, right? You're tier 5 on, have a Kelly shirt, whatever. Otherwise, if you have a full, like 4 or 5 dragons already, right? And you just
Yeah.
add a Kelly and then you're good to go, right? But if it's like turn, even sometimes 7, sometimes 8, right? You get the Kelly, you don't have any dragons, right? Other people also get 6s, and but those 6s spike like crazy, right?
Yeah.
So you end up fighting someone who has like an Eliza, you end up fighting someone who's a Captain Flat Toss Aga, and you're taking 20, and then you don't have time to scale, right? There has to be a dead person or something, and even then, right, you're scaling just as fast as them. You're not outscaling them, right? That's the one thing, right? That's what Caligos used to have, that nothing could compete with it, right? You outscaled everyone if you had a Caligos, but nowadays, even Lightfang, it's like, I could compete with you, right? You need the Caligos and you need the Nadina, right? Or
I
you
feel like
need
you
a
almost just need double Cali right
or
early, right?
double
Yeah.
Kelly Nadina, or Kelly super early, right? Some form of that where you spike before them, right? But if you're playing a fair game, they have a 6, you have a 6. Yours is a Kelly. You don't have a bunch of immediate dragons to support you. They have a Eliza, they have a Flat Tusk, they have a Charles. Even a Malgadon sometimes just like gas curler. I've seen it, right? It just blows you up, and then you take one bad loss, and then you're done, right? You can't play risky, right? You can't level, can't do any of those plays that you can normally do when you have a Kelly. So that's my issue with Kelly at the moment, but it's not bad,
Yeah,
minion,
yeah,
but
I feel the same way. Where sometimes, I guess maybe you've been playing my Ev and you have this Whelp pair and maybe the 2/3 pair. Like, let's just go crazy, right? You have like 4 dragons on your board, you triple it. Then sure, right? You just get started.
that's what I'm
But
talking
most,
about.
yeah, right, yeah. But most of the time, it's just like, well, I don't even want this. Like sometimes you take it, right? When you say,
Yeah.
well, a 4/12
Yeah,
is about as good as the rest,
yeah.
so
There.
then
I
you just
mean,
grab it.
I agree. There are some situations like it's the best of the bunch, right? And then I somehow like lose one game. I'm like single digit, and I can make it from there. And I'm like, okay, that was a breather, but we got there. We won the game, But a lot of times it's like, I'm gonna die. And it does. So it's there's a little bit of careful. Yeah, it's not an insta pick as it used to be when it came out. But yeah,
Yep.
I think that's a good discussion. We'll probably talk more about the meta as we go on. But I think that was a pretty interesting start. We will be talking about a card, a minion. Yes, that's next in the list. Thorncaller. I think we talked about this card a little bit last week, but we didn't have like a clear discussion about the card, right? It's a card that initially when it came out, I thought it would be like okay, I didn't give it much thought, I guess is how I'd put it,
It's not a
right?
fancy card, right? It's
Yeah,
not something that pops out and be like, "Oh man, this thing is a problem," or something. Like you're like, "Well, okay, sure, I guess that's worth me."
yeah,
You,
especially with like all the other cards that ended up getting nerfed, right, over time, right? Like the bonkers and stuff like that. That was what we were spending our time on, right? But this one, got under the radar. It was like, oh, you get a blood gem, whatever, you get a blood gem, da da da, right? But there's actually been it's I think it's better than initially, I guess, my initial um analysis of the card, just because it has synergies too, and it opens up lines as well, right? So
yeah,
the two reasons that, right, if you have a thorn collar, right, you can pick up the 3/3 that
brute,
gets,
yeah.
yeah, the brew. You can pick up some random stuff. I've picked it up with Earth Shaker, Ground Shaker, whatever the card is, and just like, okay, whatever. It works, right? I get +2/+2, right? I'm not like thinking too hard. It's just a piece. Another thing I've done is like Death Rattle. The Death Rattle synergy comes in place sometimes where I have a Macaw, I have a Thorncaller. I'm just like, oh, this is
Your
this
ally
is this.
here, your guy goes twice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also reborn. How many times have I ran Lich King and just see this guy and be like, I'll take
Yes,
it.
100%. So much.
And it's
It's
just
so good for Shaker comp, right? You just
yeah,
have a golden thorn collar that's 4 gems a turn. It's
yeah.
nutty.
It's
Yeah.
it's actually quite powerful. So I've really been Pleasantly surprised, been enjoying the card. It doesn't feel like I'm cheating, you know. It's so
Yeah.
good.
It's not like, oh, golden bonker,
Yeah,
16 times around or something. Yeah,
yeah.
for
So
sure.
I've been happy with playing with this card. The battle cry as well. Sometimes you have a brand, you're like, yeah, whatever, I'll take two. Right? It's not. It doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't think the battle cry comes in play as much as the death rattle. Funny enough, but it does happen sometimes when I'm
It's
like,
like late game usually, right? When you're
yeah,
just like trying to get a little bit of extra gems for your shake, or
yeah,
I'll buy it and sell it, right?
yeah.
Yeah. But yeah,
Uh,
most of the time it's the death rattle that matters.
Yeah, so that's been my experience. I think it's a lot better than I pick up. And I when Shady mentioned it last week, experimenting with Thorncaller, I was like, you know what, I would do that too. And I've been happy with it. So I wanted to talk about it this week.
For sure. No, I think it's a great card and a great moment to talk about the card because I don't see it on my opponent's boards very often. And I mean, obviously you see it sometimes, right? But it's for me, it's a snap buy on 3, right? It's up there with like, oh, I'm getting a sensei and a mech or something because it's just it carries the tier 4 experience for me. So when I'm on tier 3 and I see this, it's so big because I don't have to let anything go for it. Whereas if you are shopping for it on tier 4, you have to say, oof, that's 3 gold I have to spend on this minion now, which you will still do if you already have the shaker, but it's a bit questionable when you buy it before you get the shaker on tier 4. Now, sometimes I'll still do it. It depends a bit on what my board looks like. But that's why it's such a relief if you can get it on tier 3 because you're spending very little resources because there's not much on tier 3 that you buy that's better than this card when it comes down, I would say, because you're already getting +1/+1 on something if you have a reasonable target, like you mentioned. Brute would probably be the best. Bronze Warden is also insane. You can take it from a 2/1 to a 3/2. It suddenly trades a lot better. So I guess the main thing here is that this card doesn't need a lot of time to start earning its keep because it's immediately, oh, +1/+1 for you. And I'm also a 4/3 body. Whereas a Sensei that comes in at a 2/2, right? And you need another mech. And this thing can just buff anything.
Yeah, very
And then the real
flexible.
power. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Right. Like if you have, yeah, and even like I've had games where I've had the perfect shaker setup where I have 2 of these and you never get the shaker and you're just like, oh, +2/+2 on my deflect up return. Hi, that's a sensei. You're just like, yeah, okay, that's fine. Like targeted sensei, like you can't miss. So still okay. And then you triple it. A lot of the time you try to aim for a 6, right? Whenever I'm
Right.
playing tier 4, because when you're playing around with this card, you're usually trying to get a shaker. When you have a shaker, you're usually trying to get a flat tusk. I mean, when are you not trying to get a flat tusk in this meta? And yeah, it just ends up being good. So it's a very, I guess what I'm trying to say, it's a very functional pair. You don't have 2 of these on your board, and you're like, oh crap, I got to triple them soon. I got to triple them soon. I got to triple them soon. Sure, you want to triple them, and eventually you do have to, or you have to sell one. But it's not like with some mugs you have on your board. It's not like with I don't
Oh
know,
man.
Some alley cats you have left, right? You're just happy to have this because they do work. So they're very keepable, especially if you have a ground shaker.
I think mugs and jugs are like my most baited pairs where I'm just like, if I triple it, it's so
Keep
good.
it around.
But while I'm running, I'm just like, I took 5 extra here. I took 6 extra. Oh man, so yeah, it's definitely. But yeah, Thorncaller definitely useful pair, useful card. It has a lot of properties, very flexible. Synergizes with a lot of cards that you can pick up freely on 3 and 4, and just does a lot of work. So I do recommend. If you haven't played it, you don't like the card, try it again, see how useful it is for you. Next card we're talking about is Ysera. This one's pretty peculiar because we've talked about a lot of heroes. I want to, well,
Yeah.
technically 11, but it's actually more than that, right? Since there have been some times where we talk about multiple heroes, we talked about a decent amount of heroes, and they all seem to be on the like top tier strong side, right? It's harder to talk about the heroes that don't get that much play, right? Because even if you talk about it, right, it's like, I'm not really gonna play this hero, right? Oh, Shutterwalk has some value. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, I don't care, Collins. Who cares? But you're not always gonna get the best tier heroes. It's not every game, as I would know, is Reform, Hooktusk, Omu. Jandis, right? That's not every lobby, right? You're gonna have some struggle buses, where you're gonna have to play some heroes maybe you don't want to play, you haven't practiced, or you haven't seen in a while, or no one else plays it, right? And there, even though those you will see those heroes, it doesn't mean those heroes are horrible, right? It just means that either they have like some consistency issues, or they don't scale early, right? Some heroes pop off later, right? But then if you don't pop off, you're dead, right? Like Cat isn't a bad hero, right? But if no one dies, and you're the one to die, you don't have a hero power. Same thing with like Rag, right? If you die first, or you die before it pops, then what's the point, right? But it doesn't mean that heroes are bad. They just have like some consistency issues that prevent them, right? I think Ysera kind of falls in that ballpark where it's not a bad hero at all, but sometimes you're not gonna get the triples you need, the drags you need, things like that to make it there. And sometimes you have like one shot, or you have like a chance to get a triple into a six, right? If you don't hit the Kelly Ghost, right? Your whole board is dragons. You don't hit the Kelly Ghost, so you're like, well, I'm dead. I don't know I don't know how to salvage this
Well,
board.
I tried, right? Yeah. Yeah.
So there are some drawbacks to this hero, but I think it's one of those like lower tier heroes that can actually win lobbies, right? That can actually end up winning first place if you hit the right minions, you get the right triples and things like that. So I wanted to talk about, well, Shady wanted to talk about it, but I can also talk about it too. As well. But yeah, you can go from here. Let me get some water.
Yeah. So it's just been something that's been popping up where if you've seen recent episodes, you know that mechs are a big deal for me, and they enable the, oh, I hit a bunch of bad heroes. Let me just get the tier 4. Let me get a nice little module. Let me get an arm, a deflecto, or some Kirages, or do something. And a lot of the time, that something involves let me get some mix as well. So Ysera is my go-to hero in a pack where I have, obviously I missed on, the Jandas, the Rafam, the Omo, etc. And it's just like, oh, let me just play some tier 4. Wait, mechs are out, Keck wait, right? It's like, oh no. And then there's Ysera. And I started playing her again because I had some success with her before, where she is very good at pair gaming. And the reason I started experimenting again with her is because I've been really big on pair gaming. We'll talk about that later. But the ability Ysera has is you roll a dragon guaranteed every time. So you have a lot of control over making pairs. Like you can quasi guarantee 2 to 3 pairs going into tier 4, right? Where you say, oh, if I'm just going to buy the dragons, I'm bound to get 2 of the same at some point. And that has made it very consistent for me to be able to triple into 6s, as you mentioned, and look for that Caligos. But even if you miss on the Cali, if you find an Eliza that suddenly packs a punch that can keep you alive for that next pair to triple, then you find the Cali, and you're like, oh, cool. Now I'm both alive and I have a Caligos. Because a lot of the time you triple into Cali, you take a bunch of damage. So that's been good. So when I play Ysera, my main goal is to get 2 whelps early because they save a lot of health points. 2 whelps, if you are pretty much just buying dragons, it's pretty unfair early. You're like, oh, cool, I have an arm of the Empire. Oh, 5 damage. Sit down, arm. Right? Nice tier 3 unit you have there. Just instantly gets sniped. And that only gets better as you buy more dragons. So usually my ideal start on Ysera would be a token and a whelp in the shop, so I can just buy the token, freeze, then the next turn level, then the turn after that I'm going to try to buy 2 whelps, right? Because even if you freeze, the dragon will still pop in the shop, which is very consistent. If you don't get a token and you don't get a whelp, I usually just buy something, let the shop go, and then I just try to get 2 whelps as early as I can. So usually you'll have a whelp pair and a glyph guardian pair, because those are the good dragons, right? You usually don't want to have the 2/3 dragon, and you don't want to have the 3/3 the steward. So I guess I'll just go turn by turn a bit to explain the curve. It's not going to take too long, right?
Go for it.
Right? It's not going to take too long, right? So we've covered, like, essentially on 5 gold, what you want on your board ideally is either 2 whelps and a token, or a whelp, a token, and a 2/4. If you didn't get the token, let's just say 2 whelps or a whelp and a 2/4. then if your shop was really good, you might still freeze a thing you want because you know a dragon's going to pop in the turn after. If not, you just let it go. Then on 6 gold, you buy probably whichever dragon pops in the shop and something that was in the shop, either another dragon that randomly got in there or a Togwaggle, which is actually really good if you're just making dragons on your board. Or, let's say I found a spawn or I found a random 4/3. Then same thing on 7 gold. That one's pretty straightforward. You level and you buy a dragon. The juicy turn where I feel like I make the difference is on 8 gold, because usually on 8 gold, what I will be doing is I level, right? But on Ysera, I stay because that's the turn where I flesh out the pairs. That's where I get, if I've been really unlucky, that's where I get my second pair. If I've been hitting well, that's where I get a third pair. So I'll be rolling, and I'll almost exclusively be buying the dragons that pop in the shop
Like
due to the hero
Hank,
power.
right? Like you get a lot
All
of
right,
Hanks
yeah, tier
that
three.
turn.
That's where you get
Yeah,
the Hank. So
dude.
a Hank pair happens. A Hank pair happens, right? Obviously, well, not obviously, right? But some people might prefer a Bronze Warden pair. I don't know why, but
What?
yeah, crazy, right? So yeah, so tier 3 is where you get. I mean, Hank is on it. It's okay, right? Especially if you're winning with the whelp, so it's okay. But the 4/4 dragon, the emissary, especially if you've hit a Bronze Warden, that's an amazing pair to set up. Like we mentioned, we can get a Hank pair, we get a Bronze Warden pair, and then you go to the 9 gold turn. That's where you level to 4 and you buy a thing. And you usually play very conservative with your economy, because this is the point, or maybe during your rolling on tier 3, you've frozen the triple. This is the point where you say, okay, that's the 6. So let me just level to 4, buy a thing. Your board is already full. So you're holding that thing in your hand for
Okay.
economy. And then the turn after that, you push to 5 and you cash in on the triple. You get the 6 drop. And your board is relatively full because you didn't, oh, let me sell the thing and buy the thing, because you held it in your hand.
Yeah.
And now suddenly you have 2 more pairs. You have a 6 drop. And every time you roll, one of those pairs might pop. So it's actually quite fast that you've got to find the second 6 drop after that.
Yeah, I think it's really important to reiterate that on that 9 gold turn, you're buying something and holding it, right? That's assuming that you're not like taking a ton of damage the turn before, right? Like you're relatively healthy, right? But you're holding that gold because if there's a good chance you're getting a free dragon next turn, right? There's a good chance one of your pairs will triple, right? Then you can buy that triple, either sell something, right? Sell whatever's in your hand or sell something you don't want, and then level it and still have 7 minions at the end, right? So if you hit the Caligos, you hit a Nadine or whatever, right? You're relatively strong that turn, or you will be strong in the following turns, right? But if you don't hold that card in your hand, then if you go for the triple, you're gonna have 6, and it's the chance you lose a lot higher, right? You might get sniped, right? If you don't hit Caligos, you hit a Elise, right? Going second is really bad. If you have a Nadine, going second is really bad, right? So having that full board that turn is quite important, especially if you are feeling pretty strong. So I'm glad that you mentioned that. I was gonna mention it if you didn't, but you did, so I didn't have to talk. But I wanted to do that.
That's Collins test. Yeah, but that's pretty much just been it. Just pair gaming with dragons, pulling 6 drops, and hey, sometimes it's not meant to be, right? You get to zap the Kangar and the God knows what, and you're just like, okay, thank you, Bob. But sometimes you hit that, and like the very next roll is like, oh, another one, right? And
Yeah,
then that one's good.
yeah,
So you essentially have 2 to 3 shots where you have your pairs, and you're like, okay, these are almost guaranteed to pop in the not so distant future because you're guaranteed a dragon on every roll, and you get to try to do something. And the main thing here, I'll stress that again, is in a no mech lobby where tier 4 strategies are weaker, so you're less likely to run into someone with just, oh, I have this 20 damage mech that is moduled, and your guys are just going to run in and you're going to take a bunch of damage because you fought me in the mid game and you're trying to triple into 6s. Like I said, in the no mech lobby, most people are trying to triple into 6s because the mid game is a lot weaker for everyone. And Ysera just has that almost guaranteed shot at 6 drops, where the other heroes, they still need to get lucky enough to hit the pairs, right? And if you're not a Maya, if you're not a Rafam, that is not that easy, right? You're still just sitting there like, well, I hope I find pairs, I guess, question mark, right?
Yeah.
And Ysera just gets the dragon guaranteed, so there is a reasonable chance you are finding the Caligos on the what is it, 10 gold turn there. So that's turn 8, right? Turn
Yeah.
8 Caligos.
Yeah.
With a board full of dragons, that's pretty powerful.
I want to mention sometimes you're me and you level to 6. That Ysera is one of the best heroes that can really utilize being at 6, right? Since it opens up Amalgadon, opens up Caligos that you can just randomly get, right? So many,
Sure.
a couple, well, not so many, but there's been a couple of games where I don't have a direction, I'm playing Ysera, I level to 6 because I'm like, whatever, I don't care. And then bam, instant double Caligos. I'm just like, oh, okay, I'm in.
Let's go.
I'm done.
Yeah.
So especially if you can get away with it. Let's say there's a dead person in the lobby, or you're very healthy. You tripled into like an Eliza or something, so you're fairly safe. You know, getting to 6 and rolling on 6 has a lot of benefits in with this hero as well. So I just want to you mentioned that is an opportunity. Be aware, viewer discretion advised, right? You can instantly die. So, yeah, it's not something I say to go Ysera dues every game, but if you have the opportunity, being on 6 with this hero is really, really strong.
For sure, yeah. It's like you're in the candy store at that point, right? It's like, ooh, I'm just rolling into more Caligos. Amazing. Also, just like rolling into Razorgore, right? That's
Yeah,
also just so like,
on
oh,
5,
cool.
yeah,
I
it's
rolled
really
into
nice.
Razorgore.
Yeah,
Nice, great. It's like, oh, and I happen to have 6 dragons on my board. Well, how convenient.
yeah,
So it's instantly a unit when it
yeah.
comes down.
That happens when I like triple into Nadina, and I'm just like, well, I guess I roll on 5 because I can hit the 3/6 and I can hit the Razorgore, and those both are
Yep,
really, really strong. So,
for
um,
sure. Yeah, early Nadina synergizes so incredibly well with Enforcer, for sure.
yeah, I had a game where I won, where I started with Nadina, and then I just rolled for the Divine Shields, and then I like leveled like 3 turns later to a Caligos. I'm like, okay,
No,
I made it work, and I won.
I had an almost win where I had no Cali and I just had, what was it? Like a golden Hank,
Hey,
golden Enforcer. Yeah, golden Hank. Wait, I'll say it again. Golden Hank was my biggest unit, right? So it wasn't like insanely big, but I just had 2 Nadinas. And especially if you Argus like a Divine Shield Dragon, that is so incredibly consistent because like nothing's getting sniped at the start, and then it just goes from there, right? You have a big Razorgore, you have a big Hank, it gets the value trade, then reshields later on. So it is deceptively strong how relatively small your dragons can be if you have enforcers on the board and you have Nadinas. Like it's just people go like, wait, I lost to this? What the hell?
yeah, really nice. So, just another option if you don't get exactly what you want in the hero selection. Ysera's not bad, especially when mechs are out. Even then, you can still pick it up, right? Like, it's
Yeah, I
a
mean,
fun
play around
hero.
with it.
That's another thing. It's a fun
Yeah.
hero. Yeah, like sometimes you gotta look at the fun factor. We don't really talk about the fun factor in this show, which
You
I
want to be
think
associated with the fun factor?
I
Oh
would
no.
love to be associated with a fun factor, but we don't do that here that often. But this is a fun hero. So oh yeah, but yeah. Anyways, our next topic. Okay, this is I wanted to talk about blood gems and how they've kind of adjusted the power level of some cards. So I've noticed that no one really plays Zap anymore, because you play Zap and you're just like, well, it doesn't do anything because the blood gems have already like fixed the problem for you. And at so
Yeah.
many games, I'm seeing Cave Hydra Endgame where I'm like, there's no way they buff this normally. It's just they transferred their blood gems to this, and I'm just like, damn.
Hydra is on some
Yeah,
juice, man.
like they
That's
had.
not an all natural Hydra. Yeah.
I fought them the last turn. They had nothing, no clears. Now it's just a gigantic Hydra. I know there's something funky here, And I remember earlier, or we were before the Quilboars, we were talking about Hydra and how it could be a trap, right? Oh, sometimes you get a Hydra in Hurley and you can't buff it; it's just a trap. Da, 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 da. Now it's like, oh, you have a Hydra and you have some blood gems. You put it in there, give it to them, have a clear. It's not a problem really, and I've seen way more hydras these days because you're able to just buff it, cleaves and stuff like that, right? Um, Full Reaper is the same, right? But Full Reaper, people buff like Full Reaper is more organic a lot of the time, where you're like,
Yeah.
they were playing Menagerie. It's fine. I'm okay with that, right? Where Hydra just comes out of nowhere, and so many times in Alec here, I just like it, I remember these games so clear, right? They had nothing. Next turn, Alec here, Divine Shield, Wind Fury. That's like 5 minions off of my board, and I'm just like, I'm dead. So it's pretty interesting how blood gems have changed like some heroes. Another thing is in the early game sometimes I'm putting blood gems to kind of get minions past like a certain like threshold where they can 2-for-1 or something like that, right? Because when you have like a 1-2 or a 1-3 or something like that, right? That really dies to everything a lot of times. But you have a 2-4, right? That can trade. Sometimes you have like a 3-4 and you make it a 4-5, right? That can trade really well with things. So there's a lot of like those small brackets where like the extra 1-1 does a lot of value, right? So like it's similar to the demon buffer, right? So when you have a 2-4 and you buff it with you make a 4-6, right? That now is so much better than the 2-4 because it's able to trade with so many different things, right? You're able to do that a little bit easier when you have blood gems. Just put on something you think will be small but relevant in your game plan, and then it ends up trading 2-for when that happens a lot. And then also with like Baron, Rivendare, and stuff like that. Sometimes I put it in there, right, to prevent zaps, so zap coming once again, or prevent these things. I've also done it with like the egg, or I put one on the egg, and like, okay, I can now like, it's very easy to trigger the deflecto, right? I can just have this egg always gonna attack first, so I don't have to lose. Um, I don't have to risk it, right? Where sometimes you have like a deflector and an egg, and you're like, well, I hope the egg dies before the deflector gets hit.
Or
Right?
I hope the sensei hits the egg or
Yeah,
something like
or
that.
something like that, right? Yeah. So, but with a blood gem, you're like, okay, don't have to worry about that anymore. So there's a lot of like small little things that have made
Quality of
some,
life things
yeah,
you can do for sure.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I do have to say that Zap got screwed. like,
Yeah.
like the one like real benefit was Zap was like, oh, I can kill Baron, I can like snipe something, or whatever before they get to skill. Now you run a Zap and you're just like, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
They have
Like
an answer.
pirate scam endgame is buy a bacon relaxer, right? To make sure your
Yeah,
Baron doesn't get your
yeah,
Baron and your Chads don't get targeted.
yeah.
Or you can even use it to run a regular Chad, but you put it to 3 health so you can run
The
Baron and Ghoul.
end
That's
goal,
also another
yeah, exactly right. You can put on the Khadgar, so yeah, that's very true. So that they
so it's
survive.
very flexible and yeah, Zap is the big loser where although I saw this was actually kind of funny. I saw Saf doing this exact thing we described, but then the other guy's playing a mega Zap with a bunch of gems. So he just snipes everything anyway, which is
That's
pretty funny.
I guess
Yeah.
that's one way of doing it. Just run a
Yeah.
gigantic zap. Oh
Just
yeah, because
make it
no one puts the blood gems on the zap, right? Like if
yeah.
then
But it's not really like if you're playing scam comp and like specifically there, if the scallies are still the lowest attack, the combo still goes off, right? So it's still
right.
pretty good. But yeah, there are some uses for it, but it did get screwed because it's so easy to now say, oh, I'll just make this my lowest attack minion, and if that gets sniped, I don't care.
Yeah.
So
It
big
also
loser.
helps some scaling um like directional scaling units that don't get the scaling itself, right? Like sometimes I'll have like Charles and Nomi, and then like at the end I'm keeping the Nomi, and I'm just like, it's big enough. Like I can just keep this for the rest of the game now. Where normally like at the end it's like, I have to sell my 4/4 Nomi, right? It's not that good, right? But when your Nomi's like 2020 golden Nomi, you're like,
So
that's pretty.
you've been playing Flat Tusk Nomi then, or what? Or like how
No,
are
no,
you
no,
doing?
like just a Charles or some random thing with
Oh,
Nomi. Yeah,
wait,
yeah.
Charles? No,
Yeah,
you ran
yeah,
some
like
funky comps there.
you get a 6, and it's a Charles, and you're just like, and you're like, and you have a Nomi, and you're like, okay, Charles will make my minion strong enough that the Nomi will scale without taking too much damage, and then you get there.
So
The point.
that's where we play very different. Because
Yes.
when I'm playing Nomi, I never go to 5. Right? I feel like going to 5.
Never go to 5. How do you get the golden Nomi if you're never going to 5?
Triple. So this is
You
what
3 triples, and you always
this is
hit
what I
Nomi.
usually say. This is what I usually say, right? By the time, and I've seen you do it, and I absolutely hate it, right? But by the time you have secured your golden Nomi, it's time to sell Nomi. That's what I usually say on average, right? Now, once again, the way how you play the game, your game sense, your exceptional just comfort with greed makes you get away with it more often than you should. But honestly, for everyone listening, don't go to 5 when you're playing Nomi. It makes no sense, right? What are you trying to do when you're playing Nomi? You're trying to triple your elementals. Where are the ones you want to triple? They're on tier 4. You want the Divine Shield guy, you want the Cleave guy, right?
You want the 4/4 one
That's
that
the only one. But, okay, look at it this way, right? You get what? A Nomi in the 4/4 and what? 17 other bad minions you don't want?
you get
And
faceless for more
doesn't do anything.
Nomi, and
Yeah, for no specifically no.
and you can easily triple with huge minions, right? So let's say you have like that wildfire, right? It's like 30/30, right? You just buy one and then you target it and then bam, instant golden, right? And it's 60/60, still pretty good. Yeah, it's not 90/90, whatever, but that's still 60/60, and you get like a genie or something from the shop. It's great, you know. There's a lot of, this.
No one else helps the triple unit. You're staying on tier 4 and not spending 7 gold leveling.
I'm not spending 7 gold leveling. Probably maybe
Okay,
like
so
5.
how are you getting your 2 extra Nomis in time if you're waiting until it's like 5 or 4
Okay.
gold?
Sometimes I get 2 Nomis on 4, and then I'm tired of running 2 copies of Nomi, and I want a golden one. So I just level to 5 and then get the golden one, and then I have a free slot for an extra one.
But if you're running 2, are you not already winning the fucking game? And aren't you strong enough to run 5 units?
And I want to win harder. Come on, I don't want 2 random Nomis.
That's what I want you to say, right? It's not the right play. I just like big numbers.
It's the right play because I win with style. And if you're gonna win, how else are you supposed to win? You gotta win, knowing that there was no chance your opponent could defeat you. You know?
Fair. I'm boring that way. I like to up my percentage. Right? If I hit double Nomi, I'm staying up for it.
I like crushing their spirits. Yeah, that's how it
is. Right. Good talk.
Anyways,
that's a good one. Yeah.
Blood Gems made cleaves better, but made Zap a little bit worse. It also fixes some early game numbers where you can 2-for-1, and also fixes some things with like Baron and Khadgar stuff where you can do like goal composition with scams without like scared about losing your Khadgars and things like that.
I think a big winner, like when we're talking like Blood Gems, especially mid game, is Alakir, where not only do you just have a big thing on far left, which is always good for Alakir, you just need a big thing for the hero power. It's so easy when beasts are in. It's like, ooh, this brute has been gathering all the gems. Oh, there's a Hydra, there's a transfer thing. Oh, 40/40 Hydra in the mid game with Wind Fury clear. It's just like, oh, it kills 5 minions before they go, right? It's just like chunk the taunt and the guy next to the taunt, chunk in the middle. All right, 5 things dead. Your turn, right? And they're just like, oh, I'm taking 25 here minimum.
Yeah, I haven't really talked about heroes. What heroes have won? Like gotten better since Blood Gems have added. Maybe George.
Alakir's huge. George. So what George does is, so Bonker. I don't love Bonker right now, but on George is great because you shield him and he's worth. So my problem with
time, right?
Yeah. My problem with Bonker is you start investing in a Bonker, and a mid game you're just like, now I have this Bonker and it's got gems on it, and I need to look for the 3/3, and I'm not finding the 3/3, and I should actually sell this Bonker, but I'm invested in it, right? And George is like, hey, give it Divine Shield. It's good to go, right?
Yeah.
Like it's a big thing with Divine Shield. That's what you want, right? So for George, absolutely, right? George specifically with Bonker and just the gems in general makes his hero power better.
I don't know if I'm missing one.
Well, George Alakir makes sense because they've got the Divine Shield.
Yeah, of course.
What else is huge, right? Yeah. I think just the start with the bacon guy as well enables for some cool power leveling strats, because you start with bacon guy, you sell it to level to 3 on 5 gold, and then if you open a shield, all of a sudden it's like boom, +2/+2, and you might even already win the next round, even though you leveled last
It
round.
it reminds me of the blood jump hero where
Yeah,
you
yeah,
just get
that's all
that.
he did.
Yeah,
He's like, trade, give me a shield
I
next turn.
I've
It's
had
plus
that
4.
game where I did that exact curve, and I got the
Yep.
shield, and it was like, ah, I'm pretty much the
Huge
blood
growth.
jump guy.
It's like stabilized now. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
all good. Yeah.
yeah, pretty nice. Um, Next topic we shall be talking about is pairs in the Quilboar patch. You know, do we still do it? The answer is yes. We still pair game over here. it's
Okay, good. All right, end of topic. Yeah. You were all curious. Yes, we like pairs.
I still it's because like sixes are still really good, especially with Flat Tusk in there, Eliza in there. You know, sometimes Kelly goes, sometimes just get Imama gas coiler stabilization, boat stabilization, right? It's still good, and just I really think probably what we're talking about is like what pairs are good, right? Like
Yeah.
in terms of what's going on. We talked earlier about how well, I talked about how Mug and Jug, right? They throw me off a lot of times because the triple with them are it's so good, right? Triple Jug, it's so good, especially if you have a brand. But if you have a brand, then you probably don't care. Like at that point, you're just like, I'll just roll it. It doesn't matter. But so you usually don't have a brand, but um, if you can triple A, right, it's a lot of value. It's a huge power spike, and a lot of my games is with a jug, but you have to be very careful where it's like, okay, I can hold this like one turn. Or like
Yeah.
1.5. It's always the issue is like
Always
just
one more. Always one
yeah.
more.
That's me.
One more. You start rolling, you're like, I mean, I know we can probably. We won the last one, right? One more, one more. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's
Relatable. Yeah.
That's basically me there, right? And we did talk about Thorncaller. That's probably an example of a good prayer where it doesn't really fall off, even if you have 2 copies of it, right? You're still getting value every turn. It still does work for you. You can synergize with it. So, um, being aware of what pairs you can keep, what pairs are good, what pairs you should throw away, what pairs you shouldn't even try to get, right? Like Scally Pair is one that you particularly don't like, right? Where it's like, why would I triple a Scally? It's essentially making it weaker, and you're not getting that much of a value. So why look for that? Especially if you're looking for Eliza. Why are you tripling your Scally to no Eliza? It doesn't make sense.
Yeah. I mean, like, to be fair, like a disclaimer, if you're playing Maiev or Rafam, sometimes that's the play, right? You're
Yeah.
just like, well, I get, because you need 6 drops, and sometimes the game gives you 2 Scallies, you buy 2 Scallies. But yeah, conventionally speaking, on other heroes, you don't got out of your way to buy 2 Scallies, right? Because, or if you have them, you don't want to triple them if you have an Eliza. Yeah.
So it's just I think pairs have always been good. Just because, well, pairs have always been the way to get triples, and triples have always been good. Let's pairs
Yeah.
can throw you out to dry, but triples, they're reliable, and sometimes when the meta isn't reliant on getting like high tier minions. I remember with demon meta and stuff where the power spike was at Tavern 3. Like you didn't need triples that much, right? Because you could just go to 3 and then roll and get it, and that was fine. Especially as also I remember like super early with Light Fang, some people would just level to 5 and roll. Like if you got to um if you got the triple on 4, that was fine. But if you just rolled on 5, that was also fine. Right? It wasn't like necessary to get the triple to win the game, right? You could just roll it into it. But sixes are a lot harder because you open up the window of other people buying a ton of 5s and like hitting you really hard, or someone else getting a 6 and hitting you really hard, right? Like it's a lot easier to like roll and like no one, well, that's not true. Depending on the hero, but it's not very common for you to like stay on 1 and get a 2 triple. Like, oh, I need this 2 triple super early. I'm gonna stay on 1, right? Because you can just level to 2 and you're not taking damage, right? Same thing with like threes, right? You can just level with a three, and you're not taking that much damage where you're like super scared, right? But once you get to 5 and 6, right, then you start taking a lot of damage because people have 5s and 6, right? So they're hitting you really hard. So you need, if you want to get a 6, you got to get the 6 through a triple, right? You can't just like with every hero just level to 6 and then roll into the 6 and then win. So that's what the pairs are doing, are still really relevant. They've always been relevant, but even now, right, with Hook Tusk, with Eliza, with Kelly Ghost, with um, even Charles, right, there's a lot of good 6s that once you get them, you feel strong. So it's very easy to have like one pair or two pairs sometimes and just like hope, see if you can get the triple. If you don't, well, you can still, stay on 4, maybe go for a taunt comp or whatever. But if you do get it, then you have direction. Then you have this, like, okay, I can do this. I can make a comp from here, right? Flat toss, agam, bam, I've won, right? So I do think pairs are still relevant. They'll probably still be relevant. I think the game's kind of designed on pairs being relevant in this, and I'm not like that's not surprising. I think that's just a normal function of auto battlers in this. Uh,
Yeah,
yeah,
like
so
it's things get stronger when you triple them.
yeah, so not too.
So for me, I guess it's more how relevant are they compared to previous metas, right? So when I'm
I've
looking
always
back,
been a pair gamer. Let's be honest.
yeah,
So.
I know, yeah, but you're always going hard, right, for the win, and you gotta have your pairs to do that. But if I'm looking back on the spell meta, a lot of it was the pair isn't as
That's
important.
true.
Just be strong
Yeah,
enough to be on tier 5 so you can level to 6, right?
that was
And a lot of
prize
the time,
gaming over there.
yeah, that was prize game. You're just trying to be strong so that you can abuse the prizes to be on the correct tavern tier, which is pulling a 6. And then you get the meta after you get the post prize meta, which at least for me, right? Like it was just taunt comp fiesta. And then if you're playing taunt comp, who cares about triples? Like you
yeah,
pull a 5, yeah, maybe a void lord's okay, right? But a lot of it is just let me be strong. I want to have a good mid game. And then now with the Quilboar meta, once it's settled a little bit, right? The dust is settled, Charlie got nerfed, etc., etc. The big winner here is Flat Tusk, where you see, oh, the meta really revolves around getting an Agam and a Flat Tusk because that engine is just unbeatable when it comes to stats. You have to scam it. And then because it buffs shields, it buffs cleaves, it's really hard to scam. And the Agam grows to stupid proportions as well, right? The Agam gets like 120 health or something dumb if you have like a golden boar and a flat tusk. You're like, oh, +3, +3, +3, +3, +3, +3, and sometimes it buffs itself as well.
yeah.
So when you know that that is really really meta, then the value of pairs, at least for me, goes up because how do you get a flat tusk? You triple into it, right? It's rare that you level to 6, then roll into flat tusk, then roll into agam. It can happen, of course, right? Sure, right. It can happen, but the vast majority of flat tusks are going to come from a triple. So for me right now, they're more important than they were before, and I think the most important thing is how do you set them up? How much HP do you lose? And then afterwards, of course, you got to evaluate when is it time to give up on the dream? When is it time to ditch the pair? So I've been huge on tier 1 pairs because they're so easy to set up. So what I love, let's say I'm playing a hero like Yogg or Zyrella, those heroes can stay on tier 1 an additional turn and the curve is not awkward. So it is way more likely that you get 2 Elementals, 2 Rock Pools, 2 Micro Mummies. You want to get the ones that are either good for economy or they're good on the board, right? So Rock Pool is effectively a 3
Shady froze. Hey, that's new. I've not had this happen before. Uh, but hello, chat. Uh,
push
oh, he's
pair early
back.
as well.
You froze for like 10 seconds.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
it
know
was
what's
fun.
happened there. That may have been
It
my
was
connection.
hilarious. I was alone. It's never happened, so
Okay, that was weird. Yeah, but that might be my fine internet provider. So I'll just repeat for anyone who missed this, where like you are looking to get good tier 1 pairs, right? So either pairs that have economy attached to them, like Murloc Titantress, Elemental, or things that you really like playing on the board, like Micro Mummy, Rock Pools. But I've also been enjoying Micro Machine because if you get it really early, it's actually okay-ish, right? And then a golden Micro Machine with a module on it can stay the whole game essentially because it's just self-scaling. It's a lot of damage. It's essentially poisonous at some point. Now, you might say, well, why not tier 2 pairs? The question there is, well, are you going to be able to set them up? Because a lot of the time, the way how I get my tier 1 pair is you might have the situation yourself where you have two mummies in the shop, but there's no token, and you're just like, huh, is that worth? Should I do that? I'll just like buy one and I'll let the shop go and I'll just buy two drops. Whereas for me right now, I would much rather have two micro mummies than taking the chance of Bob giving me like spawn plus good two drop, because there is a very good chance that you open that shop and you're like, what is this garbage? Right? Like, do you expect me to buy this? Whereas if you have two micro mummies, not only is it okay-ish on the board, right? They're buffing each other to 2/2 and then 3/2s, but you also now have that shot at the flat tusk, right? Or the shot at the Eliza early, where now you can build around that. Where I wouldn't recommend getting too many tier 1 pairs, right? Sometimes you can carry two pairs, but most of the time it's just going to be one pair, and then the rest of your board, you're just working to be strong so you can carry the pair. And then when you hit the triple in the shop, you level to 5, you cash it in either next turn or this turn, and suddenly you're in the running for first if you have the flat tusk, and you can now look for the Agam.
I would mention that probably Micro Mummy is one of the few one drops where you can just be like, I'll just take that pair and then like just
I'll
go
do it
from
with
there.
Sallies. I'll do it with Acolytes. I'll do it with
Okay,
Whelps.
okay, Acolyte as well. So Acolyte and Sellies are tokens, right? So they don't count.
Yeah, okay, but Murloc Tidehunter, right? Murloc Tidehunter. Alley Cat's a bit weirder because you're having two 1/1s on your board, but I still do it sometimes. We're just like, oh, whatever. It's economy.
Yeah, okay, Acolyte and Micro Machine. I think those are the two like standalone where you can just take two and be like, yeah, because
Well, two rock pools, right? Fine.
okay, so like let's say I start with a token and then I get like two acolytes in the shop. I sometimes freeze that and just take that. And then same thing with
snap freeze for me right
yeah,
now. Like I don't even have to think about it.
yeah,
It's
okay.
snap freeze.
Sometimes for me, I like the risk. Okay. Micro Mummy I can see as well, right? Like the Murloc, the 2/3 Murloc, I don't think I would like necessarily freeze for. That's what I'm saying. Like
That's fair. That's for me snap freeze right now.
yeah.
Like I'll take it. Snap.
Okay,
Yeah.
so a little bit different than for us, where you would take that. But I think
Well, that's why I said I've been playing hyper aggressive for
yeah.
that 6, and it just increases the chance so much
I understand.
if you get it on that shop, because if you're not getting it on that shop, you have to get lucky along the way, right?
Yeah.
So when I see the pair presented to me early, I'm like, great, that's that, I can check that box with like pair acquired. I now have a shot, right?
I just run 4 pairs anyways. Like I you just threw out the gift. So I guess that's how I do it differently, where I just happen to have a bunch of pairs. They're just not always tier 1 pairs, right? Where I do agree that tier 1 pairs would be a lot easier versus having a tier 3 or a tier 4, which I sometimes happen to have, and I'm rolling, and then like it's you don't hit it, and it's more of a struggle. Another thing, when you froze, I was literally like, what do I do?
That was awkward.
Yeah, I was like, huh. Like, do I just are we done? No, I was
Technical difficulties, right?
yeah, but yeah, it was it hadn't happened before. I haven't had to deal with this, so it was quite novel. I was like, huh. But yeah, I do think that's interesting discussion on pairs, where we kind of have a slightly different mentality, where you like getting the pair immediately and then just making sure that your transition to making the triples very smooth. Where sometimes I like to play with risk, where if I don't love the early triple, I'll just like roll and hope get higher tier triples. Sometimes my first triple is like a Tavern 5 double, like a Tavern 5 minion, and I'm like,
right. And I'm sitting there for sure. Okay.
Yeah, so it can sometimes be very different, but I do think in essence it is the same, right? Get the triple because the tier 6s are so strong, and then use that to
And
win
then
the game.
I guess like another thing to talk about is because this is like the scenario where it works, right? You get the pair, right, and you get the 6, and then everything's fun. But what if you don't hit it, right? So the usually what I'll be so ideally, especially if you're playing, so like Omu is a master at this, right? Omu is a master at getting 2 tier 1 units on the board, and then just every turn
Level,
level
yeah.
buy, right? And then eventually, oh, triple in the shop, level to 5, grab the 6, right? That is the perfect turn where your Omu, your I don't know exactly what turn it is. Like, is it 9 gold? I think
No,
9
it's
gold you
like 8
level.
gold sometimes.
Yeah, if
Oh,
you have
that's if
double
you're getting a
token.
5, yeah.
Yeah, my oh yeah. So
Or if you have double token,
my usual slow mo curve, I think it's 9 or 10 gold, right? Like you
yeah.
just
Okay.
you get the triple out of the shop, boom, perfect money. You didn't have to sell anything off your board, and you have the Eliza or you have the flat tusk or whatnot, and it's just perfect.
Yeah.
But then it's that particular turn, and I feel like that's what's clicked for me in the meta, where you're on track. You're like, okay, this is the part where I level and get the triple, but the triple's not there. Stay on 4 for one more round and just roll a bit, and that's where you prevent that mayday going down and from my triple,
I
right?
just level and like,
Yeah, Collins then buys some mama bears and stabilizes, right? But most people don't have that kind of skill where,
yeah.
if they don't hit the triple, they're dead, right? So
Yeah.
most of the time, like myself included, I do much, much better where I have my triple. I'm in a position to go to 5 and pull it, but it's not there. Like I wasn't able to find it on the way, I wasn't able to freeze it,
Yeah.
or it didn't magically appear in the
Yeah.
shop when I leveled. Because a
But
lot of times I go in the shop, come on, Bob, come on, in the shop, let's go, straight 6, straight 6, and then it doesn't show up. And then you just start rolling and you just say, okay, I'm going to do a couple of things, right? So depending on what's in or what's out, you can start, and depending on what's already on your board, you can start to make plan B, where let's say you were able to pick up a Thorncallers and maybe you have a Divine Shield. You could say, well, I have my pair. I'm just going to leave that for now. I'm going to try to keep that intact and just build around the 5 slots I have, and play a Shaker with a Divine Shield and a Thorncaller. And then the next turn, or if at the end of my rolling turn, I'd sit suddenly in the shop, as it usually is with like 1 gold left. Bob is like, "Oh, you looking for this?" Right?
yeah.
You freeze it. That's fine, right? Just burn the gold, freeze it, and then the turn after, level buy, try to get the flat tusk, and suddenly you have your shaker, and you're fine. You can also just say, oh, let's just buy strong standalone minions on the way. So, hey, I can buy my egg. I can buy maybe an imp matron, right? Or I can maybe buy a high main, because I do have some weaker minions on my board and I have that pair that I'm carrying. And then next turn, I can roll and see if I hit my triple without taking a bunch of damage. So that for me has been so much better than saying, fuck it, we'll just go to 5 and we'll find the next turn. Because, man, if you don't find a next turn, it's really bad, right?
Yeah, it
You
definitely
just die a lot of the time.
is.
So
or
that's been
you
increasing my consistency so much.
or you have single digit health and you luckily fight the dead guy, then you roll into
Yeah.
the triple on that shop and you transform your composition fighting the dead guy, and then by the time you come out of there you're significantly stronger than everyone in the lobby. Hey, that could also happen, but most of the time you die.
And strategies do change based on a ghost in the lobby, right? Sometimes I'll say it myself, like, fuck it, there's a ghost, right? Just like, I'll tank this turn, next turn I'm 1 and 2 or 1 and 3 to get the ghost, depending on who
Yeah.
moved in the bottom,
The
right?
game's trying to kill you, Shady, so you never
Yeah,
get the
yeah.
ghost.
One and 2 means you're not getting it, right? Yeah. So yeah, so for anyone listening who doesn't know how the ghost system works, maybe a little update, right? The bottom 3 players are eligible to get the dead guy to ghost.
Except for you.
Yeah, except for you, right? But there's no real. I don't want to say there's no logic behind it, but there's no fairness behind it. I'll put it that way, because someone might be in the bottom 3 for 3 turns straight, and then the top guy took like 20, is like slide right in, taking your ghost.
Yeah.
Right? And it's so frustrating. You're like, how is he getting the ghost? I've been bottom 3 the whole time. So there's no fairness behind it whatsoever. All it does every time is check, did you get the ghost last time? I think it's 2 turns need to be in
2
between.
turns, yeah.
Correct? Yes, you have 2 turns where you're not eligible to get a ghost if you had the ghost before. So that's the criteria, right? If you had the ghost before, you don't count. And are you bottom 3? So it doesn't matter how long you've been down there.
I will mention that there have been the first person that dies, sometimes it resets. So I've had the situation happen where I killed the 8th place person. Then
That doesn't count,
something
though.
happened, and then I fight them again. Like the
Yeah,
turn.
that's normal because they weren't a ghost. So you don't get them as you kill them, but you don't have that 2-turn cooldown because they weren't a ghost. You just don't fight them because they were your opponent last time. I think that's how it works.
Yeah. Because normally, if they didn't die, I wouldn't fight them the turn afterwards, right?
Yeah.
But
So,
since they died, it's like it resets, and now I can fight the ghost again. It's like, okay.
For sure. You just have one round where you can't get the ghost
Yeah.
if you're the one that made the ghost, and then you can get the ghost afterwards,
Yeah.
which is amazing. Whereas, first I will kill you, now I will use you to get to tier 6. It feels good.
It also resets when it's top 3. So once you get to top 3, it resets again. So even if you fought the dead guy, then you become top 3. You can end up fighting him like right afterwards or the turn.
Right.
The turn.
I haven't
afterwards.
seen much of that, but
Those are the two like inconsistencies with the reset that I've seen a lot. Once you get into top 3, the ordering becomes weird, and if you're the one who created the dead guy, then it also becomes weird. So those are the two like nuances, I guess, to it as well. But anyways, we've talked about Paris quite a bit. But I think it's always fun to talk about it. Next topic we have is identifying the lobby leader. You know, sometimes you're playing a game, you're a little bit hurt. You're like, who's winning, right? A lot of times it can be easy, right? If the dude's at 40 still and he's dealing 20 plus to everyone else, well, that's pretty easy, right? But sometimes, everyone's a little bit lower, right? People are all like, I've had games where like 7 people are single digit HP, right? And you're just like, wow, who's winning? Who's the leader, right? And that one, it takes a lot. It takes more information where you have to look at, what comp they're playing, how much damage they're dealing, who are they fighting, right? How your opponent did against other people's opponents, right? That's the more like in-depth, where you're looking at your opponents and how they're doing against other people to kind of judge for yourself. Okay, would they get stronger next turn? Okay, according to my logic, they had like double Caligos, but they just got it. All right, so next turn they're going to be insane. Oh, they lost still. I wonder. That means the other guy must be so much stronger. Oh, he's playing elementals. That means he must have a gigantic elemental in the front. So maybe I should just run, poison there, even though I wasn't planning on it, just because he actually beat the double Caligos guy, and I think that's going to be my answer to defeat. Like that kind of stuff is a little bit more harder to just tell.
On that note, but sorry for on that note, the best thing is when somebody smacks you for 20 is like an absolute beast, and then somebody just one shots him from 25. You're like, how strong is the other guy? What the hell, man?
Oh, man. Dude, it's so annoying sometimes where I'm like, it's like turn 9 or turn 8, and they hit me for 16, and I'm like, oh my god, why did you ruin my game? And then the next turn they die. And I'm just like, what happened to you? You screwed me and then died? It happens so often.
It's usually an Omu that's just got like 2 Ragnaros, 2 Genies, 2 guards on the board. It's like, yeah, everything's 6 stars. Yeah, you didn't kill anything. I'm sorry, bro. You're dead.
Oh man. So I do think it's a pretty important ability to be able to notice when someone's strong, because there are games where it's like, I'm feeling okay, I'm feeling like maybe this is like a second place, maybe top 4, and then you look at who you're fighting and they're dealing a lot, or they have like double pirates, double pirates, it's or triple or 3 pirates or something, and you're like, I'm gonna die. Let me go full out. Let me play myself. Let's just go. I'm trying to survive here. Where it can be very surprising sometimes, where you're playing games, you look at them, and then the match starts, then you're like, oh, I should have looked at his board and his damage dealt. He dealt 36 the last player, and I did not notice that I was about to die here, and I should have played everything. So and those little moments can be the difference between you getting like sixth place or you surviving with single digit HP, fighting the ghost. The other person kills the next guy, and then you're top two out of nowhere, right? There's been a lot of games where I feel like I don't deserve top two or something, right?
Yeah,
But
your comp could have easily done worse, right?
yeah,
Yeah.
but because I was able to realize, okay, this guy might be the killer or the leader. I'm going to play as I'm selling my brand. I'm going, whatever, selfless Baron. Let's go, right? Everything out on the fort, and I barely survive. I fight the ghost. I'm able to beat the ghost, and then the other person takes out the other player, and I'm like, okay, top two. I'm happy. I will take
Yeah.
this. That kind of thing. So many games
And
are
and
like that.
and even in that situation, it's really good even to just notice, oh, this guy is a monster, right? So that means two things, right? I'm never ever killing him, and the dude that's fighting him is gonna die. So sometimes you're in a situation where you're against the ghost and you don't really know how strong the ghost is, right? He just died. He probably just fought the monster, right? So
Right.
you're like, it could be really strong, but it's just like no one's beating the monster, right? The number one in the lobby. So I guess that's a bit more for me the way how I play with shaker comp. It's, am I holding gems to try and go for first, or am I just using my gems on the ghost to make sure I don't lose to the ghost? And in that situation, it's really useful to identify, okay, I'm never ever winning because that guy is way too strong. And I'm always getting second here because the other guy is dead, right? So there is no reason to hold back anything against this ghost because this is my last fight that matters. If I win this, I'm second. If I lose this, I'm shared third, right? Or two
How
and a half.
how many games have we lost to the ghost where I could have like played super?
Oh, it happens, man. It happens.
I
For sure.
I
You're
could
just
have
like,
popped off, and I was like, it's a ghost, and then I'm like, I don't keep in mind that it was a disgusting individual that beat the ghost, right? So the guy the person who lost, it could have been disgusting himself, and I get surprised, like, oh wait, I actually lost you. Wow, I had like, six cards in my hand.
yeah. You
you
just go like,
know?
you died? You died? How did you die? And you're
Uh,
like, oh yeah, this guy's
and
really, really big.
Chat's like, lol, haha.
Yeah, Keck W for
Check
sure.
them,
Yeah.
yeah.
Lost to the ghost, Keck W. Streamer's just sitting there, Keck Wade. Yeah.
Yeah. And another thing, right? What if you're the lobby leader, right? Like, how do you
Ah,
play differently, right? If you are the strongest in the lobby and you know it, right? Sometimes, right, very easy for me, right? I just level, right? I just go level. You know you're going to be strong. You've got like I had a game where I had like what was it, gold grubber double and the token golden, right? I'm just leveling every turn because I'm like, well, no one's killing
yeah,
my
you get
gold
free
grubber.
stats
Yeah.
for sure.
um Another thing that happens is sometimes games end quickly or something, or you think everyone's weak. Like I've had this with like jugglers where I had like a golden juggler and like a full board of jugglers, and I'm just like da 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 da, killed somebody who had a Caligos or whatever, right? And then I killed another person who had like, who had the other six, right? And then everyone else is weak. And it's just like, oh, this game was so easy. I killed everyone. It's because you killed them before they get to scale, right? And then the other people are the people that didn't hit, that didn't get anything, right? So you just have like some random like juggler comp with like a bunch of demons that don't scale. But since your comp was strong enough to kill the people before they could scale, you end up being the strongest in the lobby. And that's something you have to realize, because sometimes I'll see people run like a basic comp, but is strong enough to kill somebody, and then like five people are left, and then I'm like just trying to survive, and then I fight them again if they swapped their comp to a scaling comp, but
Yeah.
then they're weaker than me now because they were, instead of just sticking with the demons, they swapped to some type of scaling, no me scaling or something, and then now they're weaker than me, and then they die, and I'm just like, if you just ran
So
demons all the
I
time, you would have won.
I think in that respect, because I actually do that quite often, the person just did it wrong, but it feels really weird to do that transition right. Because I like
Yeah, yeah.
I'm the master of jank on the board, right? Like I'm the master of just like so this happens so often, right? Like I kid you not, 3 turns of 2 harbingers, 2 acolytes of Cthulhu, and then divine shield or something else, like a void lord, right? And it's just me with a Caligos in my hand, buying dragons, buying battle cries, just stack, stack for 3 turns straight, and then boom, right? Suddenly the Caligos is a 2020. And yeah, it doesn't make sense to transition when you have hand space and your current composition is stronger. But it does require you to be very comfortable with saying, like, okay, even though it feels very counterproductive, or
Yeah,
maybe not counterproductive is the wrong word, it feels awkward, like, oh, I'm not doing anything, right?
for 3 turns.
But sometimes yeah, 3 turns, like,
Yeah,
not uncommon, right? But that's specifically Harbinger, because Harbinger is so good at giving you a
and
lot of tempo.
jugglers, and jugglers.
Yeah, yeah, you can have that as well. So it's just you gotta yeah, it's counterintuitive. It's counterintuitive to sit there and actually be stronger by not doing anything. But especially if you are in a position where it's usually Caligos, but sometimes it'll be maybe even Flat Tusk Agon or something. But that's a bit of a weirder one because with Flat Tusk, you really don't want to be spending money and not having Flat Tusk on the board. So it's usually like a Caligos transition or maybe even a Ragnaros transition where you
Sometimes
just have
with
a decent hand.
Menagerie as well. I've sometimes do.
Yeah, like Bran. Like sometimes you'll have a
Yeah,
Bran in the
yeah,
hand and you're just stacking like jugs and stuff.
yeah, or
And like, all right. And then in one turn, it's like, out with the Harbinger, out with the Harbinger, out with the Acolyte, out with the Acolyte, play the
yeah.
Brand, play the thing, play the Primal Fin, and suddenly like 20 HP Murlocs, two of them.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Murloc transitions back in the day when it was like more common and everyone's going Murloc's way. You just have brand lookouts and then you just like waiting and waiting and then you're like, okay, let's go. This whole everything's
Popping
done.
up. It's very fun to do, but
Yeah,
it's challenging. It's
it is
definitely
challenging. Yeah,
challenging. You gotta. It's gonna be frustrating at the start because you're gonna think you're gonna get it in, and then you don't, and you're like, "I died, crap!" Right?
yeah.
So it is intimidating to say have 7, 8 cards in your hand in this game, right? But it is also rewarding when you get to the point where you get those transitions right, and the things that really help in that moment is know exactly what you're selling, know exactly what you're playing, and what order you're playing it, because that's going to shave 20 seconds off your turn, right? You do not want to start that turn being like, okay, so which one am I selling, right? Because then you're dead. Like you want to know exactly, right?
I
You
do
also
that
want to know the
sometimes.
order, right? Am I? Yeah, you want to roll first, or you want to level first to spend your money because you want to like sell immediately, right, to make the board space.
Yeah. It's a pretty useful skill. I wouldn't say it's super necessary or common or you're gonna do this every game, right? But definitely you'll notice sometimes where you're really strong, but um, you're you're you if you want to scale, you would have to get weaker, right? So instead of getting weaker, you just hold the pieces until you have enough where you can match the power level of what you have, right? Because if you can match the power level, then as well as you're getting like extra 7 gold or even 10 extra, like you're getting so much extra gold that turn because you're also selling your board, you're selling those your buffers or whatever as well, right? So that's a lot of time and a lot of gold that you can use to get strong, to get a stable board and then get strong that same turn. But it's a lot of APM, right? You got to take that time, so you do have to plan for it. But it's definitely something that can win you a couple of games where if you don't do that and you stick with the comp that you have, right? Um, you know, you're gonna end up like being top 4 or something like that, right? But
Yeah.
yeah, so it is a good skill set to have, as well as identifying the leader if it's not you, right? Just in general.
Yeah. I guess another thing, like when you are leading the lobby, I think it's a lot easier to say, okay, how do I lose? Right? That's a very interesting question to pose in that moment because you can get really caught up in making your guys bigger.
Mm.
And Colin's gonna say, nah, always make your guys bigger. Always make your guys bigger. But
No, I
sometimes,
mean,
yeah.
I if we're
Okay.
being serious, or
If
like,
we're being serious, right?
yeah,
So you could say, like, okay, realistically speaking, no one's getting bigger than me. How do they beat me? Poison, right? That's usually how people answer stats. If they can't outscale them, they're going to try to poison. So then something that is brilliant, right? The counter that is, let's say you have 4 really big things and you've had like a brand, a buff slot, and something that didn't really matter. What you can do is like Ghoul, Golden Selfless Baron. Like that's pretty much unscammable because the Ghoul Baron's gonna fry spores, even if they have Divine Shield, if it's a George. It's gonna remove all their shields. The Selfless is gonna pop. You're gonna put 4 shields on probably 3 out of your 4 dudes and the Baron, or if you're lucky, your 4 big guys. And that's quasi unscammable, right? So if you can get Ghoul, Selfless Baron, or you don't even have to go that advanced, you can just have 5 big dudes, Selfless Baron, that is going to decrease the chance that you are scammable by so much. But sometimes it's too late because you would just, oh, buy more things, more blood gems on the Agon, let's buff, 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 buff. And then it's like, oh crap, I have no shields. This guy has poison divine shields. My 100 died to a spore, and you're just dead.
I've had that
So
happen a couple
yeah,
of
it's not
times.
fun. It's
Yeah,
not
no,
fun,
it's
right?
not.
So if you are the lobby leader, you want in time to start building your scam protection where you say, all right, let's go get that ghoul, let's go get those selfless, let's buy that baron, and then that's a very, very safe 3 minions to add to your board. Or if you really only have 2 slots, just baron selfless. But it's so rare that you have a minion that's better than baron when you have a golden selfless, because 4 instead of 2 shields is a huge deal.
Very, very true. But yes, I think it's been a good discussion. I think that is our last topic, right? Yep, for the day. It wasn't too bad. Wasn't too long. I think.
For sure.
Yeah, this was a less topics than I usually have, but I think it was a good discussion. A lot of interesting strategies there. But thank you guys for listening. Thank you, Shady, for being here, and always appreciate having you here.
As always, man, happy to be here. Thanks for hosting it.
No problem. So, everyone else, thank you for the feedback and support, the YouTube comments, and as always, you can send whatever you want to hsbgpodcast@gmail.com, and you can reach us at educated_collins at Twitch and YouTube. YouTube is the same. Not the same, but find it anyways. And Shady.
Same as always. See you guys. Twitch.tv if you want to see some more action live.
Yeah, skipping to the end. I like it.
All right.
I don't know what I'm gonna do. I think I'm gonna leave the technical difficulties in, but I don't think it was too big of a deal. But I'll see you guys later. Take care of yourselves and have a nice rest of your day.